All right. Hello and welcome to Valley Sports Telegram presents the Sports Telegram. Joining me as always, Kenny Hodges, and just like she said in our VST pod, we're not getting rid of her. She's going to be with us. Kaylie Harden is a permanent member. So it was a roller coaster week for the NFL this past weekend, and there was a lot of excitement, some exaggeration, and some people already thrown in the towel. But before we get into it, I'm gonna let Kenny jump in with his initial thoughts, and we'll get rolling.
Yeah, man. It's listen. We're 2 weeks in. We still got that fresh smell, that fresh coat of paint, that new car scent on the NFL season, and there's still a lot to kind of figure out with these teams. And it's really interesting time. It always is early in the year, but it's just early enough to where you can start to panic if your team didn't get off the ground well. There's visions of grandeur and what could be if your team has gotten off to a hot start. And we're going to get into all of that, man. It's always fun breaking this stuff down, man. That's what we're about to do. Let's jump right in. All right. So heading into week, as we come out of week 2, obviously we've had a lot of action. If you've been listening to us, you understand, you know where all of our hearts lie in terms of our teams that we follow. Arshavir's got it worse than most of us because he's got 2 teams that he's hard to split in half in terms of where his allegiances lie. And Kaylie's a big Cleveland fan. I, unfortunately, am a New York Jets fan. And we all have experienced the emotions this week. So before we get into the headlines of the week, we'll start with you, Arshavir, because you've got 2 teams you need to kind of assess their performances from this week. How did you feel your teams did this week, and how do you feel where the teams are heading into week 3?
And it's funny, and I don't know if I've ever said it on the record, and I'll just gloss over it real quick. My football fandom started in 1993. I saw the Cowboys win the Super Bowl. Fast forward to this fall, sat down on the couch, and I asked to watch a Cowboys game, and I was told, no, in this family, we're Raiders fans. And so I was a Raiders fan and a Cowboys fan. Funny enough, the Raiders taught me that season that they're just going to break my heart because they left LA right after. So that's where we have that. Now, they broke my heart again this week, getting beat up on by the Bills. Honestly, I didn't expect them to win. I didn't. Josh Allen was going to bounce back from week 1, and he did. So I'm not sold on this McDaniels regime because I think they did Derek Carr dirty. So they have a lot of ways to go before I start buying into that. Cowboys, on the other hand, 2 weeks in, Mike McCarthy's starting to look like a genius, starting to look like he wasn't the problem with the offense, even though they haven't needed the offense yet. Oh, side note, the Chargers are 0-2. So that's interesting. But those are my thoughts here. I think the Cowboys defense has stepped up. They've done what they're supposed to do. The offense hasn't been challenged yet. And it's not to say they didn't face a good defense in week 2. They just tired out that Jets defense and ran over them in the second half. So, yeah, that's what I got from my teams.
And before I kick to Kaylie, because my team played your team, I wish that my origin story of my love for the Jets was as magical as yours. It was my origin story was someone should have turned the TV off before I discovered this wretched team that has been nothing but a source of torment for most of my life, as this game this weekend was as well. Great defensive effort, but what can you do when the team's on the field, when the defense is on the field for 40 plus minutes? When the Cowboys have got 40 minutes time of possession, eventually that defense, as great as it is going to wear down, And we know the offensive issues that the Jets are going to have this year because the guy that we brought in to run the show snapped his Achilles before it plays in. Yes, that could only happen to the New York Jets. As the memes have still continued to trickle in my group chat. Thanks, guys, for that. And yeah, that's the story on the Jets. Kaylie?
My initial thoughts for week 3 is bamboozled because that's just like the theme that I think has been going on with me. Not only because I'm in last place as far as our picks are concerned and I'm bitter about it, but also because there's a lot of teams, like even going into this week when I'm thinking about, who are my picks going to be this week, there's a lot of people that there's a lot of matchups that at the beginning of the weekend or at the beginning of the season, I would have felt a lot more confidently about the outcome. Whereas now I'm even looking at the Chicago game against the Chiefs and I'm like, I don't know, Chicago didn't look too bad last weekend. You know what I mean? So like I'm questioning everything at this point.
And speaking of questioning everything,
I think Kaylee's deflecting against the Browns because they completely broke her heart on Monday. So
yeah.
we'll get into that in just a second.
Yeah, but I will say this. We won't jump the gun on the picks. That's how we'll wrap things up. But as I put in the docket, there's an interesting twist I'm going to throw into this friendly competition of ours. You guys just stick around and you'll wait and see. But moving on, let's get into the headlines of coming out of week 2. There were several stories that sort of grabbed the attention of NFL fans all over the world. And we'll start with the injury bugs injuries have sort of really kind of taken the forefront at the beginning of the season. We're only a couple of weeks in, but we're already seeing some notable names go down. We saw what happened, unfortunately, with Nick Chubb, a gruesome knee injury on that Monday night game for Cleveland. We've seen Saquon go down with the ankle in Arizona. Anthony Richardson was looking stellar, looking lights out, looking like a young Cam Newton. Goes into the end zone, hits the back of his head, goes into concussion protocol. So we're not sure where he stands there. We saw Jalen Waddle go down from Miami. We saw my beloved linebacker Quincy Williams, the brother of Quinnen Williams, leave the game with a knee injury in Dallas. Not really sure where he stands there. We saw Odell get banged up, which we didn't really want to see. Man fought so hard to get back, and he looks like he might be on the injured list again for Baltimore. Obviously, Kaylie, I know which one of those injuries sort of hits home for you. So I'll start with Arshavir. Is there any name that sort of hit the injured list that you think might be a real source of issues for teams going forward?
I mean, Odell, right off the bat, I'm like, ooh, I never wanted to root for the Giants, but the fact that they were beating up on the Patriots and Odell was making amazing catches, he's got a special place in my heart. Don't want to see him go down. He, like you said, he worked so hard to come back. The two that hurt me the most, just I watched, I'm like, that just hurts, is Chubb and Saquon. You and I ranted on it. And if you guys haven't watched it, go and watch Kenny and I rant on the NFL deciding not to pay running backs. And look at that. Saquon doesn't get paid and gets hurt. And Chubb gets hurt. So these guys, there's a reason why they want to get paid, because they're going to get run into the ground and they don't have that kind of security. I'm going to stop there because we can get on soapboxes again. But those are the two that really bother me the most.
And for you, Kaylie, I know as a Browns fan, that had to be tough to see Nick Chubb go down. As we know, as it hit the news wire today, as we recorded this, that they brought Kareem Hunt back into the fold to kind of bolster with Jerome Ford, who, by the way, eerily, because his number was 34, and I think isn't Nick Chubb 24? It was really confusing at times when they took Nick Chubb out and put Jerome Ford in because they looked exactly the same. It was kind of weird. It was like a doppelganger on the field.
I think Myles Garrett is 24.
No. Myles Garrett is 95. No, I'm saying that the running back, when Jerome Ford and Nick Chubb look eerily similar, they don't quite run the same as obviously. But now with Chubb being gone for the year with the knee injury and then bringing Kareem Hunt back, do you think that the Browns can still be as competitive in the AFC North as they would have if they had their bell cow? What do you think?
Well, you said earlier, you're like, I know which one of these is going to hit home for you. And it doesn't just hit home, it hits my dining room, because we've got, I'm sure you guys have heard me rant about it before, we've got in my dining room at home, not pictures of our family or mementos of memories. We've got a framed Nick Chubb jersey signed hanging over our dining room table in my house. So yeah, this hits hard, and it's a low blow for sure, because I think that Nick Chubb in general is an extremely, I think he's an underrated player for sure. I don't think he gets his flowers the way he's supposed to. And so for the Browns, this is a huge hit. This is an immense blow, because he plays, there's been games where he's played damn near every position for us. So in times when when times are tough for the Browns, Nick Chubb has always come through. And so to not have him on the field and then have this new quarterback and a lot of other moving parts, it takes away a lot of the stability that the Browns have known and that the way that they've, been able to reel things back in when things get a little hectic. So yeah, this is going to make things shaky for them, I think, for the rest of the season. I think that Ford played a really good game trying to, step in and take over that role, but it's not going to be the same. So I think that by signing a running back that we're so familiar with, that the program's familiar with, that's familiar with our program, and that's going to, be able to just like step right in and fit right in without, too much adjustment. I mean, I know that like team chemistry it's not as intense in football as it is with basketball, but they have even mentioned during the Browns game this week how well this team gets along and the energy that's on the field with them and how that plays into their success. So I think that Kareem Hunt's the only option that makes sense right now in order to fill all those other holes without shaking things up too much.
Yeah, and like you said, you're adding a guy back into the fold that knows Stefanski's system, but Nick Chubb still leaves a giant hole to fill. If you know anything about Nick Chubb's background and how revered he is as an NFL player and just how much people love him as a person, he's going to be tough to get over that injury, but we wish him all the best. Hope he has a speedy recovery, and hopefully the Browns can continue to still, play in his honor. But staying in the AFC North, Joe Burrow struggles in Cincinnati. He hasn't looked great these first two games. We know he's coming off of that calf injury. The offense just hasn't looked like the Bengals offense that we've come to know the last couple of seasons. He didn't throw his first touchdown pass the season until the third quarter of the second game, which is very un-Joe Burrow-like. Question that I have for you guys is, should he be benched for the time being? He clearly doesn't seem to be playing well on that. He doesn't seem to be playing well on that calf. There isn't any mobility. We know his line is not the greatest. Are they doing more harm than good having him out there right now? Kaylie, I'll let you start.
I think that I agree with you. I think that he does look not his best, and I think he needs to sit. I think the only thing that would look worse for the Bengals after giving him that contract, the only thing worse than sitting him is him getting injured and not being able to play the rest of the season. So I think in this instance, it is a good idea to bench him. I think it's a good idea to play around some other options and learn what those options are early on in the season, so that way they can adjust moving forward the rest of the season instead of always trying to play catch up and always falling just a little bit short. I think now is a great time more than ever to be able to take these last 2 losses as a signal and be able to, re-strategize.
Yeah, that's a good point. Arshavir, what do you think? You think is his contract too big now to actually bench the guy? Because, like I said, it's me as a Jets fan, knowing that Aaron Rodgers was dealt with a similar injury, and then we saw what happened in Week 1. Is it too much of a risk to even have him out there with the kind of money you have tied up into? What do you think?
See, you took the angle I was taking, because I don't think it's a benching at this point. You sitting him to allow him to heal, because if he's not looking right on that calf, there's something wrong. Maybe it's not the calf, maybe it is the tendon, maybe it's the top of the Achilles, maybe there's something else. You've got to make sure he's physically right. There's too much money invested into him. He is too good of a quarterback to lose him to injury. So, yeah, it's week 2. Yeah, they're 0-2, but sit him, let him take 2 weeks off, and give him the clipboard. Just do not mess around, because if he tries to break out of a sack and his foot lingers on the turf for half a second too long, it could snap that Achilles. That's exactly the same thing that happened to Aaron Rodgers. Because when week 1, I was like, ooh, he doesn't look right. And this past week, he really didn't look right. And that, to me, was red flags. Like, he needs to sit.
Yeah, I can't say that I disagree with the sentiments there. But we'll monitor that situation in Cincinnati and see what comes of it. Now, speaking of another great quarterback, Pat Mahomes got his bag. We talked about last week, there were 8 quarterbacks who were making more money than the guy that is the consensus best quarterback on the planet, maybe one of the best quarterbacks ever already at this stage of his career. And the Kansas City Chiefs made sure that he was compensated as such, getting a new deal that makes him the highest paid quarterback in the league. But my question for you two, there's another high profile player in Kansas City who also wanted to get paid. He started the season on a holdout. Yes, he got a Saquon type deal where they gave him a 1-year deal full of incentives, did not give him a guarantee that they would not franchise tag him the next season. And now that same man, Chris Jones, who wanted to get paid like a Myles Garrett or one of these guys or an Aaron Donald or one of these guys that he feels he's in the same conversation with as being the best defensive players in the league, sees his quarterback get paid, and he did not get anywhere near that he wanted. Now, does this spell trouble for Chris Jones staying in Kansas City long term? Kaylie, what do you think?
I think that given the fact that Kansas City has already, given Pat Mahomes that well-deserved boost that he was requiring, I think that given all the other injuries, I don't not see where they're coming from. However, with a shaky Pat Mahomes and trying to secure other talent, I think they need to consider how loyal he might be to the Chiefs should they pay him what he wants. That's hard to do, especially when people just start asking for money, like we are only a little bit into the season. So who knows what performance-wise is going to be delivered the next couple weeks. But that's also a strategy on the player side too. Whenever we're talking about contract negotiations, you want to sell when you're up, right? So I think now makes complete sense why more money is being asked for, why a longer contract would be being asked for, because right now he's trending well. But maybe the Chiefs are just, trying to play their cards right, staying cautious and understanding that a lot could change between now and even like week 6.
So, Arshavir, let me ask you this, right? We talked off air a little bit about the idea when you look at a salary cap league like the NFL and recent examples like Russell Wilson when he got paid in Seattle, and it sort of kind of spelled the end of the Legion of Boom. When Joe Flacco got paid in Baltimore, and that sort of signified the end of the defense sort of being the bell cow that carried that franchise. Because now if you've invested in Joe Flacco, you've got to invest in the pieces around him, which means you might not be able to pay some of those linebackers and defensive linemen that kind of carried the freight. Does this sort of spell is the writing on the wall that Kansas City might come back to the pack if for no other reason? And if Pat's making this much money and he's taking up this much of your cap, does this mean that maybe they're going to start losing some talent over the course of the next couple of years because you can't pay everyone?
No, you can't. And because you can't is why they already lost Tyreek Hill. And we talked about that off air. But I think Kansas City, here's the thing, you don't stay on top as long as they have without actually being good at evaluating that revolving door of talent. Because Hill, if I'm remembering correctly, wasn't originally a Kansas City product, right? They've brought in different pieces and played around with what makes them successful. Well, what makes them successful first and foremost is Patrick Mahomes. And he transitioned from I'm willing to take less so that we can build a winner to I need to reset this market for everyone who comes after me. And when I look at that, it makes sense because look at everybody who got paid this year. In the past, people getting paid were on his level. But, Deshaun Watson is not on his level. Joe Burrow, as good as he is not on his level. Lamar Jackson, as good as he is, as dynamic as he is, hasn't shown that he can be on his level. Now, again, the offense wasn't catered to him throwing the ball plus running. It was running, then throwing. But still, so those are just 3 quarterbacks that recently got a big payday and pushed him down to 8th. And so he probably looked around the league and was like, look, I'm okay taking less money than an Aaron Rodgers. I'm okay taking less money than, someone else who's proven that they're at the top of the mountain with me. But now there's people who haven't reached that pinnacle and they're getting paid. So no, I need to reset the market and go from there. So I understand that line of thinking from somebody who was team first, and he looks around him and he goes, okay, no. But also looking at the way Kansas City has done things in the past, losing Hill hurt, yeah. But who's the next gem they're going to pull out? And this time it's going to be on defense. Because, yeah, they might lose Chris Jones. They might lose one of those linebackers. But, I don't know. I mean, as much as a Raider fan, I hate to say this, I respect the way they find talent. So, until they can't, I have to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I mean, and to be fair to Kansas City, they've already sort of shown you they've made the adjustments, right? This was the team that won the Super Bowl last year, basically playing rookies in their secondary, which a lot of us wanted that to be a mistake. But the kid they drafted out of UW, it turned out to be the real deal. So, hey, they know better than we are. Can you look at what Andy Reid and that staff and that front office is kind of done? All right. Speaking of young, burgeoning superstars, this was the last of the headlines that kind of fell in our lap today. Is all of the circus that is coming out of Chicago. They were a team that we were looking at some of the things they did in the offseason, looking to build around Justin Fields, added DJ Moore, did a bunch of things to kind of add to the offense, and they've started out 0-2. Today he was talking to reporters. He was asked about the team's struggles coming after the loss against the Bucs in week 2. He addressed it. He said that he felt robotic on the field and he wasn't playing his game. And he added that when he's at his best, when he's playing off of instinct and not thinking too much. And when the reporters asked him why he was thinking so much on the field, he emphatically said, it's the coaching. Now, later on in the day, he did some Deion Sanders in his prime backpedaling, and he said that the coaches, were doing a job. He would never outwardly blame the coaches or say that, or blame anybody other than himself for poor play. He would never put it on his teammates. He would never put it on the coaches. He would always, to put the blame on himself. But what was said was said. It was put out there in the ether. It spread like wildfire. And now there's fallout for that team and that organization and Matt Eberflus to have to deal with coming out of this. So the question I have for you two guys, and I'll start with you, Kaylie. Is this a bigger deal that Justin Fields said this out loud? Is this an indication of is this a poor reflection of the direction of the organization? Because like I said, we've seen him struggle, and quite frankly, we've looked at what they put around him in terms of his O-line, in terms of his weapons and things like that, and it felt like they were failing him a bit. Is this just a sign of his frustration that the season isn't going well, or is this a more indication of a deeper issue with Justin Fields and the Chicago Bears right now?
I do think it's an indication of a deeper issue, but I don't think it's an indication of a deeper issue with Justin Fields. I think that he spoke candidly the first time he was speaking, and I think that it says something. Didn't their defensive coordinator step down today?
Yeah. The defensive coordinator stepped down today.
I've been looking into this situation. I know you don't want me to spoil anything, but in regards to who I want to pick this week, and this has definitely impacted the way that I'm thinking about who has like the most, like, even regardless of the point spread, who does have the most secure, likelihoods to win going through this season. And I thought they looked good last week, and so I wasn't going to count them out. And to a point that Arshavir made off the air when he was talking about uniforms, even the uniforms looked good last week. I was looking at the TV like, okay, all right, got my attention. And so I wasn't gonna bet against them. But I think this is indicative of something really shaky going on. And I don't want to put it all on Justin Fields.
How about you, Arshavir? Where do you think the problem lies here and what we're seeing with the Chicago Bears during this entire Justin Fields experiment, and especially how things have gotten off to a shaky start so far this year?
If we're going to go backwards first, yeah, they failed him in the beginning. They did not set him up to succeed. Now, as for today, I only saw the one interview. So if I'm missing something, you guys correct me. Because in the interview I saw, when he was sitting at the podium and they asked him about being robotic, and he just bluntly, it didn't feel emphatic, it was just blunt. And he said, yeah, the coaching. And then he went on to say, yeah, I'm at my best. But he also said that's their job, is to prepare me and give me all this information. Mm-hmm. So what I heard was somebody say, I'm overthinking the coaching, because he took the blame.
Yeah.
He said, coaching is why I'm robotic. He didn't say coaching is why we're losing.
Yeah.
And so to me, and I actually listened to it about 2 or 3 times, mm-hmm. because I wanted to make sure I heard him right.
Yeah.
And yeah, he never once said the coaches are the problem. He didn't say the scheme is to blame. He said the coaches do their job to try to put me in the best position. But when I'm out there, I need to trust my own instincts. I need to do what I do best. And there is a happy medium, especially as a coach. If you're trying to tell them, hey, pre-read this, and, you know, when you're looking at the defense and this and that, all of that is information that's going to help him do what he does best. So, yeah, to me, I didn't see him say the coaches are telling me, don't play your game. I didn't hear that. I heard the coaches are trying to prepare me, and I'm just having information overload because I'm trying to do what they say to a T instead of taking it and using it to supplement my game.
Yeah, absolutely. And the aftermath of that was essentially him saying what you said, because obviously in 2023, when you make comments, the things that are going to go viral or things that get clipped, and I thought he was a little unfair to the media, because I don't think that there were members of the media who necessarily went and said, oh, Justin Fields blames the coaching. It was the internet, X, of all these places, they took that one part of the quote, and that was what got clipped and kind of went everywhere. So he kind of, in the locker room after practice, said, hey, listen, that's if you're going to put out what I said, put out the entirety of what I said. I did not blame it on the coaching. I just said that there's a lot of information, essentially what you said. He reiterated, no, I'm getting a lot of information. It feels robotic because I'm trying to change how I play, but it doesn't necessarily feel instinctual right now, which is true. When you look at what the Bears want him to do, he has run a lot in the first part of his career. They're trying to keep him healthy. They want to use his arm talent. So it takes a little bit of time, right, to kind of get him to be a quarterback who stands in the pocket and throws the ball, and not as soon as there's signs of things breaking down, him using his legs. My issue with what the Bears have done, and when I'm looking at Joe Schoen and what the team did, yes, it was cool going to get him DJ Moore and getting him a weapon. But if you watch any of that Bears game against the Bucks, and you watch any of that game against the Packers, it was more of the same of him running for his damn life the entire time. And how can someone change their game or not play instinctually, which is to run first, pass second, when you have no time in the pocket? There are some organizational things they got to clean up. That Chase Claypool situation in week 1, where I don't know what was going on with him and why he seemed to not be playing with any effort. Those sorts of things on the NFL level, you kind of look at the coaching staff first as to what is happening, because that was another guy. They traded a draft pick to the Steelers to get him, and he's supposed to be part of that mix with DJ Moore to give Justin Fields those options down the field to make life easier. So yeah, I'm inclined with you guys. I think it's a little early to try to say that this is any part in the Justin Fields issue. They still need to put more talent around him. They need to fix their lines they need to fix their issues with the offensive line. And then there needs to be more cohesion with that front office and with the coaching staff, because that's the only way you're going to be able to figure out if this kid is indeed what I think he is, which is a franchise quarterback. And hey, listen, y'all mess it up, the door is always open in Florham Park, because we might need a quarterback, because that was who I wanted to begin with. And we took Zach Wilson instead of taking Justin Fields, and I'll never forgive this front office for doing that. But I digress. Speaking of 0-2 teams, it's 2 weeks into the year. It's that time of year where we overreact to everything. We overreact to the teams who got off to a bad start. We overreact to the teams who got off to a good start. So let's start with some of these teams who have started out slow, that have stumbled out of the blocks at 0-2. We've got the Bengals, the Cardinals. We've got the Carolina Panthers and Bryce Young. We've got the Bears and Justin Fields, as we just talked about. The Russell Wilson experiment with Sean Payton is 0-2 in Denver. The Texans are 0-2. The Chargers are surprisingly 0-2, along with the Vikings and the Patriots. Kaylie, we'll start with you. Of those teams that started 0-2, who's the team that you look at and you think that they should absolutely be in panic mode? Because what we know historically in NFL, an 0-2 start makes it incredibly difficult for you to make it to the playoffs. There's an 11% chance of you making the playoffs since the merger in 1970 of making the playoffs. There have only been 3 teams historically that started 0-2 who have won a Super Bowl. Ironically, the first one was the year that Arshavir became a Cowboys fan. His Dallas Cowboys started 0-2 in 93. The 07, who was it? Doesn't matter. I know the Giants, the year that the 07 Giants.
Was it the Colts? Oh, it was the Giants.
It was the Giants in 07 when they beat that undefeated Patriots team. They started 0-2. And there's one other team that started 0-2 and won the Super Bowl. But there have only been 3. So rightfully, there is some panic that starts to set in if your team gets out of the blocks 0-2. So of those teams, who do you think should absolutely be in panic mode, Kaylie, after their 0-2 start?
Okay, so there's a couple different ways I want to break down your question, because there's teams that should be in panic mode because they should be playing better. There's other teams that should be in more panic mode because they could have been Super Bowl contenders. And those are not the same type of panic mode. Because, for instance, the Chargers, I don't think the Chargers, well, I mean, let me not speak for Chargers fans. I didn't anticipate the Chargers going to the Super Bowl. So for them to start 0-2, which they've done before, they notoriously have a slow start to their seasons. I don't think that they should be in as much panic mode as a team like the Cincinnati Bengals, where everyone's looking at Joe Burrow. They're looking at this big contract. They're thinking, okay, this team has been to the Super Bowl in the last few years. They should be able to do it again. And starting 0-2, that's not a good look. But back to your point about the 11%, if there's one thing we know how to do in Ohio, it's go week to week and constantly be spitting out, okay, what are the percentages we're going to make it to the offseason? The Browns love to do it every single year. The percentages will be 3%. And we're like, well, actually, if the Broncos lose here and Steelers lose there, and then we get in the wild card game, we could still go to the playoffs. Like, we do it every year. So I don't think this is so much of a numbers game. I think it's more about what the expectation was at the start of the season and how much the performance has differed from that standard in these first 2 weeks. That should be the indicator of how much we need to panic. And of those teams that you mentioned, I think that the Bengals need to be panicking the most right now, because not only is Joe Burrow not playing his best, now we also have to consider the question that we were just talking about earlier is, how do we move things around him in order to give the Bengals a better shot of making it to the postseason? And that's a harder question when you have this giant contract quarterback.
That's a good shout. Arshavir, where are you going with this? Who do you think should be in panic mode?
The Bengals for sure. Because it's not just the record, it's Burrow's health. And they go hand in hand at this point. If he was playing well, they could be 2-0. It's not like they got beat up by the best defense in football. The Bears, based on their current situation, losing the D coordinator midweek at this point, and the coaching staff showing that they really don't know how to build around the quarterback properly, as we just talked about. So the Bears are definitely a team that, they got these weapons, they're going to be good. No. And then the next two are AFC West. It's the Broncos and the Chargers for me. Should be in panic mode. Number one, the Chargers went out and got Kellen Moore, who is supposed to be their savior on the coaching staff as the offensive coordinator. They've looked terrible. The Chargers have looked terrible. And I say the Broncos because the offense hasn't looked terrible, but that defense let them down. They should be 1-1, but they're 0-2. And I mean, they could be 2-0. You know, the Raiders didn't beat them badly in week 1, but here we are. And yeah, Sean Payton cannot afford to go 0-3. Simple as that. And it's possible because they're playing the Dolphins.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I agree with the Bengals because a couple of reasons, right? I think the Bengals are a good shot for panic because yes, questions around the health of your quarterback, questions about the actual window that this team has. They've got to pay T. Higgins, which is not going to be easy for them to do because that's going to be a guy who knows he can test the market and he might be able to find more money than he would get in Cincinnati because of how much they just paid their quarterback, right? So there's the question of you've got your franchise guy, but if this season doesn't go the way you want, are we going to start having those questions like Dan Marino, where Dan Marino got to the Super Bowl in year 2 and never got back because now you've got a guy you're paying a lot of money to, but you've got to figure out how to keep the pieces around him. They already lost Von Bell in that secondary. They lost their safeties. They lost Jesse Bates is gone. He's in Atlanta killing it now. So this team already looks and feels a little bit different because of guys they weren't able to keep and pay. So there's a little panic there. Same thing with the Broncos. The only reason why the Broncos are a tear down in panic mode is because we already know there's who the scapegoat is going to be if this goes off the rails. It's not going to be Sean Payton. It's going to be Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is going to be the guy who gets benched. Russell Wilson is going to be the guy that gets painted. Well, I had a short quarterback whose job was to just get the ball out quick and get it to the weapons. If he can't do it, it's on him. It's not going to be Sean Payton. The team that I look at and I say panic mode is absolutely the Chargers. And the reason why I go Chargers, 2 years ago, they went to Vegas and all they had to do was win a game to get into the playoffs, and they didn't get it done. Last year, this team made the playoffs, had a huge lead in Jacksonville, and let Jacksonville come back and pull off a gigantic comeback in a game in which I had already turned it off because I figured it was over. And then Jacksonville comes back and wins that game. When you look at the 2 games they've already lost this year, losing that game to Miami 36-34 where you couldn't finish the deal. Losing this game in overtime to Tennessee in a game in which you had a lead, and again, you let Tennessee come back, tie the game, and then you lose in overtime. There's a question becoming around this team of, I don't know if this coach or the staff or whatever it is, they can't close games. And you look at the talent on this team. They've got Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa on this defense. They've got Derwin James running around in the secondary. They got J.C. Jackson over there. You got Justin Herbert. You got Keenan Allen. You got Mike Williams. You got Austin Eckler, even though he didn't play this weekend because of the ankle. But they are loaded. We should be talking about this team taking down Kansas City, but we can't have those conversations because every time you guys get in a position where we need to see you finish, they can't do it. So to me, this weekend, if they go 0-3, that seat is going to be so hot for Brandon Staley. He's already cracking under pressure because if you saw those press conference where he's calling out the guy in the media, anytime a coach starts calling you by your first name in a press conference, you already know he's cracking under the pressure. Well, how do you think we feel about losing? No, that's not the question. The question is, there's a pattern that's establishing here with the Los Angeles Chargers that they feel like a team it's a $1 million body with a 10-cent brain. They can't close games, and I'm worried as a football fan from afar. Not that I care. They can't lose enough for me because they shouldn't even be in LA. They should be in San Diego. It was a travesty what happened with those people losing their team there. But this is going to go bad. And then we're going to have conversations about, do they break this thing up if they can't get it done? So that's the team that I think should be in panic mode. Now, switching the other way. We've got 2-0 teams that have started out well. We got a few fan bases who feel good about their start. They're having dreams of being a playoff team, a Super Bowl contender. And we've got the Atlanta Falcons, a surprising 2-0 start. We've got the Baltimore Ravens and the Cowboys, two teams that we thought would start out well, that we expected because of their talent. We've got the Dolphins, who look great with Tua being healthy. We've got the Saints and Derek Carr looking like he's his rebound is working out quite well, and he's looking at his ex like, look at my new team. You've got the Eagles and the Niners, who were in the NFC Championship game. We've got Baker and the Bucks down in Tampa starting out 2-0. We've got the Commanders a surprising 2-0. But we know that some of this stuff can be fool's gold. So, Kaylie, we'll start with you because this should be fun. We know where you're going to go with this. Who's the team that started off 2-0 that you think we should pump the brakes on?
Okay, so there's actually I have a couple. Actually, I want to speak on a couple of these because, well, not to say that I'm an expert or anything, but I thought that I had a pretty good grip of who was going to be good this year. And so some of these teams I'm surprised at. Like, for instance, the Falcons, I wasn't expecting the Falcons to be 2-0 at the start of the season. The Ravens, I was confident. I mean, Lamar Jackson can move. Cowboys I was certain on. Dolphins, I'm surprised at. Saints, who dey? Come on, Nola. That's right. Go Saints. Eagles makes sense. Niners, they've been my picks the last couple weeks, so no surprises there. And then we get to the Buccaneers. And after having a talent like Tom Brady, it's hard to compare season to season. Talent, what to expect. We're seeing the same thing now with the Patriots. It's the post-Tom Brady effect, if you will. And I thought, yeah, they got Baker. Yeah, they've given up. They don't want to win. And now here they are, proving me wrong, 2-0. But I heed my warning, Buccaneers fans. You will have your heart broken. And you will be disappointed, and you will be kicking yourself in the butt at the end of the season when you're like, wow, how naive and blissful I was week 3. It's coming. Prepare yourself for the heartbreak and prepare to be able to recruit a new quarterback next season, because you're not just going to be pissed off. You will be heartbroken because Baker does this thing. He looks good for a couple weeks. Crap, he might even take a dip mid-season and then week 10 have an amazing week. Get you excited thinking that the postseason's going to go great. And then as soon as he giveth, he will taketh away all your hopes and dreams. Watch out, Buccaneers fans, because y'all coming in a little hot right now. And I'm telling you, the drop off in this ocean, it's deep. And I hope y'all are ready to swim.
Spoken like a true bitter ex-wife.
And Baker Mayfield isn't giving me any alimony.
I hear you on that one. All right, Arshavir, you're up. Of those 2-0 teams, who do you feel like we should be pumping the brakes a little bit on?
Yeah, I'll start with the Bucks because Kaylie went so hard on it. It's been no secret among the three of us that I really want Baker Mayfield to succeed. I just do. I don't know. There was just something about watching him from college to the pros and then the mini resurrection in LA. Yeah, I want him to succeed, but I think we got to pump the brakes on the Bucks until Baker shows that he is the guy. Then we all need to just look at him with side eye and be like, "Are you though? Are you?" The Commanders definitely. I think we need to just slow down right here real quick. They eked out wins. This is a team that, if the Chargers, if the Broncos don't implode, the Commanders are not 2-0. The Falcons, I think, are actually a little more legit than we want to lead on. People look at it and they're like, where are the Falcons? Yeah, Kenny and I talked about it. It's called Bijan Robinson. Like, you get a dynamic weapon like that, and then you add a few defensive pieces. And this team is, I think they're legit 2-0. They might not be a legit contender in terms of Super Bowl, but this is a team that's going to wreck some seasons. And the last one for me that I would actually pump the brakes on, can't believe I'm saying this. It's two, actually. There's two. The Saints, because we need to see how they do against some upper echelon teams. Get them up there. And then let's see. It doesn't mean they shouldn't be excited. Don't pump the brakes fully, but just kind of tap them a little bit. You don't need to be, all gas, no brakes. And the last one, my Cowboys. Beat up on a Giants team they should have beat up on. Beat up on a Jets team they should have beat up on. They face a Cardinals team in week 3 that they're supposed to beat up on. And then comes the truth. I've been heartbroken too many times, so I always pump the brakes on the Cowboys. Leave it at that.
You want to know what's funny? All great points, right? I'm right there with Kaylie. I feel like Browns fans are the girl in the salon, and Baker Mayfield's walking down the street with his new girlfriend past the window, and they're like, girl, he's going to break your heart. Could have told you. He's terrible. Just wait. Just give it a couple months. You're going to see, right? What's funny is a team that I'm with you. Maybe not a full pumping of the brakes, but let's slow down a little bit. And it's another NFC East team, and it's the Eagles. Not that I don't think the Eagles are going to be good. I just think that there's a little bit of a continuity issue from last season, that team that went to the Super Bowl. You're talking about a team that lost their defensive coordinator to be the head coach in Arizona, the offensive coordinator who was also the QB guru for Jalen Hurts is now the head coach in Indianapolis. Their offense has already kind of not looked as fluid as it did last year, which is going to happen when you have a whole new offensive coordinator and he's got to learn his quarterback. Quarterbacks they've kind of got to get that telepathy going. You saw that little exchange, even though Jalen Hurts, because he's the ultimate leader, already brushed it off and was like, listen, great teammate, great friend. You saw A.J. Brown get frustrated on the sideline in the Thursday night game because he wasn't getting the football. They lost a couple of pieces on their defense, so the depth is not quite the same. They're going to be good. That team is so loaded with talent. You got skinny Batman, you got swole Batman, you got fat Batman still holding down the middle of the O-line. They're going to be fine, but I don't think it's going to be as dominant of a season, especially when you got to deal with the Cowboys in that division. You got to deal with the Commanders, who we don't know what they are yet, but they already feel like they're a little better than they were last year. The question with them is going to be if they can keep Chase Young on the field. That sort of is a piece. It's almost like adding a piece in free agency for them on the defensive end. And we're going to continue to see what they can get out of that quarterback position. But the team that I'm pumping the brakes on, not that I don't want to believe in them, but it's going to be the Atlanta Falcons for me, only because when you watch the first 2 games of the season, they've won those 2 games while hiding their quarterback. Desmond Ridder has been asked to just not lose games, but you're not going to be able to win a division. You're not going to beat the Saints. You're not going to be able to play with the top teams in the NFC if you're hiding your quarterback's deficiencies, because Desmond Ridder is kind of learning on the job. Bijan Robinson has been great so far this year, but teams are going to start stacking the box to stop him. and they're going to force Desmond Ridder to kind of make plays. Can Drake London really step up and become a number one receiver? We'll see. Can Kyle Pitts take that next step and kind of prove that he deserved to be picked in that number 4 spot? We'll see. Arthur Smith, I'm still not sold on him as a head coach. I feel like half the time when I watch him, he looks like he doesn't know what the hell is going on. But I just need to see a little bit more before I'm ready to buy them at 2-0. But that moves us on to week 3. Obviously, there are a lot of great games on the slate. You can say that every week in the NFL because the parity is so great in this league. But there are some games that kind of stand out on the schedule. Obviously, Arshavir is going to be locked in on his Raiders and his Cowboys. Kaylie's going to have one eye on her Cleveland Browns, I'm going to be watching my Jets to see if we can break this stupid Bill Belichick curse that we got going on for 7 years. But I'll start with you, Kaylie. Is there any game on the schedule, that is not the Browns, that you kind of look at and you're like, that might be a matchup I'd be interested in watching? What game sticks out to you as most intriguing?
So, and I was actually having this argument earlier over the Bears and Chiefs. And I know who I'm going to end up taking, but I'm very curious to see how the Bears perform against the Chiefs. And I think this is one of those matchups where people look at it and they're like, oh, the answer is obvious. But I think this is an amazing opportunity for the Bears to show how resilient they can be. And I think at the same time, the Chiefs, they're 1-1. So we're not looking at, Pat Mahomes is amazing and he's got the tools around him to win. But if they lose this game, that says a lot. So that's a matchup I'm really interested in seeing.
That is definitely one that's intriguing because, like you said, the Chiefs have not looked like world beaters early in the year. And you got to think at some point there might be a breakthrough for Justin Fields, and with all the things they've done around him, hopefully it could be this week. Arshavir, what you looking at on the schedule for a game that's not involving your beloved Raiders or Cowboys that you're looking at and saying, that might be must-see TV? What you got?
I got 2 that I can't really decide between. Buffalo and Washington, and Philly and Tampa. Now, Buffalo, Washington, because that Washington team, as a 2-0, survived by the skin of their teeth. And which Allen is going to show up, right? Which Josh Allen is going to show up? The one in week 1 that was rusty as hell and then looked like he did not need to be playing football in the NFL. He reminded me of Baker Mayfield to do that. Or the one who tore up the Raiders defense. Which one? And Philly Tampa, I think this Philly D it's obviously not the best D that Tampa's going to see this year, but it's going to be the first real test for Baker. And like I said, I'm a bit of a Baker stan at the moment. I'm not afraid to drop him like a hot potato if he burns up too much. But I always want the guy to succeed. So Philly, Tampa, Buffalo, Washington.
Yeah, I had the same issue. There were, because I'm locked in on everything. I watch everything. I try to watch as much as I can. I'm glued to Red Zone. No one can talk to me for 7 hours on Sunday. This is because that's my Zen time. I don't want anybody to speak to me. I'm on the couch. Just leave me alone as I ingest as much football as I possibly can. So there's 2 games to me that stand out as games that just intrigue me, just because if you know me, you know I love the story. I love a good story. I love turmoil, but I also love young teams that sort of seem like they're ready and they're on the cusp of a breakthrough, right? We just talked about the Atlanta Falcons and how I'm not there.
The Atlanta Falcons.
And I'm not there, but this is an interesting game this weekend with them going on the road and going to Detroit. Detroit had their first setback. That was a game that I feel like they should have won. They should be sitting here at 2-0. Goff had a bad interception. It ended up costing them the game. So now they sit here at 1-1. But there's something about this Lions team. There's something about Man Campbell and how he's got these boys playing. Even down to when you watch the Lions, they just do things that are just so ballsy. They, in the first quarter of that game against Seattle, they're inside their own 20 on a 4th and 2, and they went for a fake punt and got the first down. This is the sort of stuff you get when you watch Dan Campbell's Lions team. They don't care. They're going to come after you. People didn't want to buy into all the craziness, but there's something about the way this team is coached and the way they play that makes me want to believe that they can win the NFC North. In a game like this, where you're going to be favored at home against a young Atlanta team that's also hungry, but has some veterans on it that can kind of go in there and give you a game and beat you. Can the Lions respond to that first loss and get it back on track and kind of keep the believers on the bandwagon? So that's one. The other one, because oh boy, it's gonna get sticky for whoever loses this game. And that's the Chargers on the road at Minnesota. Both of these teams have started 0-2. The Chargers were expected to be a playoff team. The Vikings were expected to be a team that there's no Aaron Rodgers in this division anymore. We know that Justin Fields and the Bears, they're trying to build something. Jordan Love, while he has looked good, obviously we proved in this Atlanta game this week that they're not a juggernaut. He's better than people may have thought he was going to be. He looks like a guy who sat for 3 years and now he's got his chance and he looks good. But the Green Bay Packers aren't the best team you've seen. They ain't the Cowboys, right? And in that division, we're still trying to figure out if the Lions are the best team in that division. But what we do know is that Justin Jefferson is in Minnesota. We do know that they still got a lot of pieces on that defense. We do know they have the most tenured quarterback in that division in Kirk Cousins. They can't go 0-3 because there's going to be a lot of questions that start swirling around Minnesota. Yes, they traded for Cam Akers to sort of pair up with Madison in that backfield. Because you lost Dalvin Cook. But if you lose this game, quite frankly, I think a lot of the murmurs around should the Jets go get Kirk Cousins start to kind of ramp up, because an 0-3 team doesn't feel like a team that's really in a position to do anything or to contend. And they already sort of looked in the offseason like they were headed towards a rebuild. So it's going to be interesting, the conversation. If the Chargers lose this game, Brandon Staley has got 1 foot out the door. Kellen Moore might be coaching that team by week 7 if he loses this game this week. So Chargers, Vikings to me, because the loser really steps in it in the early part of the season, whoever loses. All right. Now that we've gotten all the formalities out of the way, it's time for our weekly picks. If you've been listening, you know I've gotten off to the hot start. I'm in first place with 8 points. 6-2 overall. Arshavir is in second place, 6 points, 5-3 overall in the first 2 weeks with his picks. And Kaylie's in third place, 4 points, 4-4 overall. But like I told you guys, as I put in the docket, I'm introducing the new wrinkles to this competition. And I think you guys are going to like this. This is why I said, Kaylie, don't worry about being in third place, because the wrinkle that I'm getting ready to introduce could potentially take a person from third and put them right back in contention of being in first place at the drop of a dime. And that is the double down. There will be 2 opportunities this season for you to take your lock of the week, which is already worth 2 points, and you can double down or you can triple down. Now, you can only use this option once for each of those. So if you have a week in which you feel like you need the points, or you feel like there is a game that sticks out to you so much that you would be willing to double down on that and get yourself extra points, you have the opportunity to do so. But once you burn the double down and once you burn the triple down, that's it. You can only use it once for each of those. So the way it works is your lock of the week, if you choose to double down, that lock of the week goes from being worth 2 points to being worth 4 points. If you choose the triple down, that lock of the week goes from being a 2-point pick to a 6-point pick. So obviously there's some strategy involved here. Maybe you don't want to burn your double down or your triple down so early. Maybe you want to hold on to it until you might really need it. Or maybe you feel so strongly about a play and you might be in first place like I am and might want to put some space between the competition a little bit and burn your triple down. But again, the strategy is you only can double down once. You can only triple down once over the course of the next 15 weeks. That's the wrinkle we are adding here. So it goes into effect this week. You don't got to use it. Hold on to it. I would hold on to it. I'm not going to tell guys how to play, but you hold on to it. I'll keep track of when you use it and if you get your points. So that's how we'll do this going forward. You have a double down and you each have a triple down. We can use it whenever you want. So that being said, all you got to do is when you're ready to use your double down or your triple down on your lock, you just declare it as you making your picks, right? So that's how we're going to do this going forward. So in the interest of fairness, I will let you guys pick. Do you guys, who wants to go first, or do you guys want me to go first in making my picks for the week? Okay, you guys want me to go first? All right, I'll go first. So I'll save my lock for last. First game I'm taking, I'm going Dolphins over Broncos. I think it's pretty simple here. I'm not a big believer in what's going on with Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. I think they're a bit struggling. I think they're struggling a bit. Now they got to deal with this Miami Dolphins team that's kind of firing all cylinders. Now, it is a little bit of a risk because I don't know if Jalen Waddle's going to play because he was in the protocol. He was in the concussion protocol this week after taking a big hit in that week 2 game in New England. But even if they don't have Jalen Waddle, I think there's enough there with this team that I think that they will be able to handle the Broncos. So I'm going Dolphins over Broncos. My second pick, and I waffled on this pick a little bit because of conversations I had with my dear friend Arshavir off air. I'm going Cowboys over Cards. Now, I don't feel great about this pick only because as great as I think the Cowboys are this year, these are the sort of games that scare me with the Cowboys because they tend to lose these games. Even if they go 14-3, 15-2, they're bound to be 1 or 2 weeks where they lost the game where you're like, that didn't even make sense. How did they lose that game? And this could be one of them. But I'm banking on the fact that Micah Parsons is going to kill Joshua Dobbs, and that game is going to all fall apart. So for my second pick, I'm going Cowboys over Cards. My third pick, I didn't want to go safe. I had a couple of options that I thought I could go, but I wanted to have a little fun. I wanted to pick something that I'm assuming maybe that you two won't go for. I'm going to go Jags over Texans. Now, yes, you would look at the Texans and say, they're not that great. But AFC South games tend to be a crapshoot. When you're talking about the Jags and the Colts or the Jags and the Texans or the Texans and the Colts, these teams tend to just beat each other up. But I think I liked what I saw from Jacksonville, even though they lost to Kansas City last week. And I think they're going to put together a big effort and get back in the winning column. So I'm going to go Jags over Texans. And for my lock, I have a feeling I might not be the only one that goes this direction with the lock this week. I just don't see how this team on a short week can go on the road, go and win this game. I'm going to go Niners over the Giants for my lock of the week. No Saquon Barkley. That 49ers defense looks lethal as it ever has. I don't think Daniel Jones is going to be able to go to San Francisco and deal with that. Also, Christian McCaffrey looks insane. There was a video I meant to send you guys of Rams fans need to be ashamed of themselves because how many red jerseys you saw in that stadium at SoFi last weekend when Christian McCaffrey was running all over the place. I think he's going to do the same thing to the Giants. So my picks for this week, Dolphins over Broncos, Cowboys over Cards, Jags over Texans, and my lock of the week, Niners over Giants. All right, who's next? Who's brave enough to step up and put their picks out?
I can go next just because I think we had had a lot of the same thought processes this week. So one thing I'm going to say this week is I'm stepping away from my Browns. After that shaky performance they gave me last week, I can't fall any further in the rankings because you boys. I'm sorry. I might be back next week, but this week we're gonna take a break for my brownies, my little elves. They need a week off. Anyway, but this week I got Saints over Packers is gonna be number 1. And then I also want to take the Dolphins over the Broncos because I still hate John Elway. And and I also want to take the Chiefs over the Bears. And I say that with a grain of salt because I'm curious and I'm excited to see that game in general, regardless of who wins. But my lock and my final pick is going to be the Cowboys over the Cardinals. So I'm taking Arshavir's team this week, and I'm putting my faith in the Cowboys.
Hey, there are far worse teams this year to put faith in after how this team has looked the first 2 weeks, defensively, offensively, to a degree. I think we could stand for Dak to play a little better, but they're loaded. That's a loaded team, and the Cards are god awful. All right, Arshavir, you're up. What you got?
Well, I purposely stuck my pen up here so nobody would say I was jotting down while everything was happening, because I was doodling around it, and I was like, but I was like, I'm not gonna give Kenny any room to wiggle. But we've talked about this off and on. We all kind of lean the same way in the way we view some of these matchups. And so, I went Dolphins over Broncos because that Broncos team just isn't convincing at all. And again, they blew a big lead to the Commanders. And the Dolphins are better than Washington. So I don't see them falling apart there. I took the Rams over the Bengals because that defense is still going to be giving them fits, and as long as Burrow isn't 100%, I don't see them coming out of this game.
And my guy Kyron Williams from Notre Dame has been killing it for the Rams too, by the way. I'm always big up a Notre Dame guy when they're killing it in the league.
There you go. And taking the Niners over the Giants. We talked about that. It was a short week. No Saquon. Come on. I didn't lock that in because Cowboys Cardinals. That's the lock. And I can't tell you how tempted I am
to double down.
Yes. Literally, I was looking at it. I was like, I am not happy with Kenny being in first place. But I did pull back a point here and there. So as long as I'm, in this point where I'm if he drops one, I can gain a point here or there, then I'm not gonna do it. But yeah, the lock is the Cowboys and the Cardinals. And that's me.
Hey, there you go. See, listen. Hey, that's why I introduced this wrinkle to the competition, because hey, it makes you think about it, right? Makes you think about those scenarios and situations where you might want to jump. You might want to leapfrog over me, or maybe Kaylie triples down one week and all of a sudden we're both looking up and saying she leapfrogged both of us. So just wanted to add a little something to keep it spicy every week, just add a little something. What's funny is the NFL is so fickle. Even if I do look like some sort of a genius because I went 6-2, we don't know what's going to happen from week to week. This league, that's what makes this league so great. The parity. You think you know what's going to happen, and then the opposite happens every week. Like the Chargers stabbed me in the back last week. I thought there was no way they were going to go to Tennessee and lose that game, and somehow Ryan Tannehill did it again. So, with that being said, guys, thank you all for listening. This has been fun. We're going to keep bringing you this content every week, alongside of what we do with the Valley Sports Telegram. Support everything we put here on this channel for VST Media, because we keep bringing you this stuff because it's fun and we love to do it. And like I said last week, when we do the TST stuff, when we do the Sports Telegram, this is just us bringing you into these conversations we have off air and letting you be a fly on the wall to the madness and the things that we talk about that we're passionate about. So again, leave a like, leave a comment, smack talk in the comments. If you're a Patriots fan, jump in there because I'm looking to therapize and go after you guys this week because we're ending this 14-game losing streak because it's ridiculous. Nobody should beat anybody this many times. Bill Belichick is not the Sith Lord. I'm sick of it. But anyway, we love you guys. Thank you all for listening. We're going to be back next week with more of this content, with more of me being in first place in my picks because I'm a genius. And hey, keep being locked in, man. And turn on that notification bell because every time we put these up, you're going to want to listen because we give you nuggets, man. We know what we're talking about. Listen.
There's so much here and there. And I'll tell you, like Kenny was saying, the fly in the water, what we talk about, every time Kaylie goes off on us, and we think about it afterwards, we're like, hey, you know what? She slapped us around a little bit, and she was right. Yeah. Because, like it was, we weren't recording, and we were talking about Baker Mayfield, and she was like, no. No. And then what happened? He stunk up the joint with the Rams. Mm-hmm. So she's always looking to keep me in check when it comes to that guy. But
yeah. And why do you think I introduced this wrinkle? I don't trust this third place stuff. This is a wrinkle I introduced to protect myself. Okay, that's what I did here. I don't trust this. I don't trust what's happening here. This is got off to a slow start on purpose for all I know. So again, guys, we love doing this stuff. We love creating this content for you guys. So keep being locked in, dial in every week. We're going to keep bringing you this stuff. We're going to do football. Eventually, we're going to hit you with college football. We're going to do baseball playoffs. Basketballs are right around the corner. NHL is around the corner. We're going to keep bringing you this stuff. So thank you guys for listening and stay locked in.